Hi everyone, welcome to episode 6 of our At the Whiteboard series. We're back after a little hiatus with the holidays. We're going to discuss or finish up at part 2 of our discussion surrounding training plateaus. If you have yet to look at part 1 of this series, go back and look at that video. That was the last one posted on the website, where we discussed the concept of really not being able to avoid training plateaus and how they're just a regular part of the process. And rather than trying to avoid them, what we try to do is actually look at strategies surrounding how we deal with those plateaus when we encounter them. In our first part of this video series, we talked about numbers 1, 2, and 3 here, making sure that we emphasize and always continue to look back at our nutrition and lifestyle habits to ensure that those things are in place. Revisiting the fundamentals and making sure that we have the most efficient technique possible with respect to all of our movement patterns, and some ideas surrounding that. And then also the third was just balancing the amount of work and rest as well as volume and intensity, which are kind of two interchangeable concepts, but really just understanding that there needs to be a certain balance between how often we come here and burn things down versus how much time we give ourselves to recover. That's a highly individual process, and so in that first part of this video series, we discussed some ideas surrounding that and how to make it best fit for you. We're going to continue that conversation now, so we talk about 4, 5, and 6. 4 being focused weakness training, 5 being aerobic training and how to incorporate that, and 6 being the idea that we just need to kind of relax and enjoy the process a little bit and not be so attached to results so that these plateaus become ever frustrating. So we're going to delve into each one of these a little bit here. So the focus weakness training piece, with respect to that, the idea is that if we were to compile a list of all of, let's just call it all the movements that we encounter within CrossFit and within the workouts that we perform, certainly if you go down that entire list, there's going to be some that would fall into a category of stuff that you're fairly good at, things that, when you see them show up in a workout, you're kind of like, all right, I got this. Maybe you're not a master or an expert by any means, but they certainly would fall under the category of strengths, versus the category of weaknesses. So there's also going to be movements on that list that would fall within the category of weaknesses. The idea behind focus weakness training is that we pick 1 or 2 of those weakness movements and incorporate some kind of daily practice to getting better at them. Obviously, they're only going to show up only so often within our workouts in a given week, so you might be exposed to them depending upon how often you come. Maybe at most once a week, maybe even less than that, once every 2 weeks, perhaps even once a month sometimes. So what we have to ensure is that we receive more frequent exposure to the things that we need to get better at. The workouts that we program are fairly generalized in nature. That's because we want you guys to be exposed to as much as possible. But once you identify those 1 or 2 things that you really need to get better at, it's going to require more than once a week, once every 2 weeks, in order to get better at those things. So so the idea is that every single day, or at least every single time you come to the gym, that you're at least exposing yourself to those things. That could be done obviously before or after class, depending upon what your schedule allows for and when you're coming to the gym and what we're doing in class that day. And then the example that we talk about, just to give you some kind of like real world tangible ideas, is pull-ups. So pull-ups is obviously a movement that we do quite a bit of. It's a movement that many people struggle with. Many people still can't perform a pull-up within our program. Obviously our goal is to get everybody to be able to perform a pull-up on their own. So a strategy surrounding that would look something like this. So if I identify pull-ups as something that I'm weak at and that I can't do currently, perhaps I'm going to set a schedule for myself where, one day, let's call it day 1, I'm going to come in and perform negatives, call it, 10 to 15 total, where I jump myself up to the top of the pull-up, I lower myself as slow as I possibly can until the arm is at full extension, I come down to the ground or to a box, get myself back up there, and do that again. So that's dedicated, one day is dedicated to that, just to start developing more strength in the upper body as well as grip strength. Maybe day 2, I dedicate some practice toward the mechanics of the kipping swing. where I get up on the bar and I perform, understanding the body position I need to be in. I perform the kipping swing, let's call it like 20 to 30 reps of that. Creating some, improved mobility through the shoulder girdle, more stability through the shoulders, a little bit more grip strength, and just working on the timing and coordination that's required through the rest of the body for that piece. And then on the third day, either before or after class, I perform 50 ring rows. As tough as I can possibly make them. The lower the rings are, the harder that is. So 50 ring rows in as short a time as possible. Maybe it ends up being like 5 sets of 10 or 10 sets of 5 even, depending upon how challenging I make that movement. Which can become, as challenging as I want, making my body in a horizontal position with the feet elevated on a box perhaps. So there's a whole bunch of options there. So that's just one example you can use. Obviously, depending upon the movement you need to get better at, some of this can be done on your own. Some of it might require more private instruction or assistance from our coaches. Certainly reach out to us if there's things that you need ideas about, or if you need some individual instruction. We're obviously happy to provide that. The second piece, or really the fifth component to kind of what we do when we encounter that plateau, and just to come back to the weakness training, the process of dedicating yourself to getting better, even at just one movement that would be considered a weakness of yours, it's not so much the end goal that's important, and the fact that of whether or not you get better at it or achieve it. It's the focused work that you put in when you come in here that's going to kind of bleed over into everything else that you do and make you better just as an overall athlete as a result of that. So that's one way, you get on this plateau where certain things are kind of, not necessarily improving the way we want them, and just coming into the gym with at least a purpose each and every day, where it's like, well, today my focus is at least getting better at this one thing. It allows you to at least stay motivated and come in here with some sort of level of excitement, even though certain things aren't really going the way that we want them to for a period of time. So it's a good way to kind of like ride that plateau and then eventually, obviously, start to see progress in the areas that we want to see progress. Our aerobic training piece. So this is a relatively complex conversation. If we want it to be, I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. And there are basically 3 systems within our body that are functioning when we perform these workouts. So the aerobic system kind of serves as the base and the foundation. Our lactic system and our ATP system. And just think, aerobic system is responsible for efforts of relatively low intensity that are sustainable for long periods of time. So if I were to just go out for like a 3-mile run, that's primarily going to be the aerobic system at work. The lactic system is responsible for efforts that are a little bit more intense in nature, that are sustainable to an extent, but then eventually you're going to sort of crap out. So think about like a 400-meter sprint where I run around the track one time as fast as I possibly can. I'm running faster than I did for that 3-mile run, but it's not something that I can sustain for 4 laps, let's call it. Okay, so moderate intensity, moderate effort. And these are the things that like most CrossFit workouts will kind of find ourselves within that system where things get kind of icky and sting, and you get like pins and needles and that feeling of nauseousness and all that. So we find ourselves there quite a bit. And there's a reason behind that, because that works really well in terms of accomplishing a lot of the things that we want to accomplish. But it also has a tendency to potentially burn us out if we're in that system all the time. Then the ATP system, that's kind of like our really high power output, very short duration of effort system. So if I were to just do like a 100-meter sprint or a 40-meter sprint as fast as I possibly could, that system is primarily going to fuel that. It's obviously not sustainable for any period of time because the effort is so high. So we find ourselves here quite a bit. We lift heavy weights, right? So we clean and jerk, we squat, we deadlift, so on and so forth. We do workouts that are kind of interval in nature, where we work hard for a period of time, then we chill out for a little bit, and then we work really hard for a period of time. And what we can potentially find is that we're not finding ourselves developing that system potentially as much as we need to. And there are a lot of reasons why we would want to develop that system exclusive of the others. Some of those reasons would be oxygen utilization, just the ability to intake and utilize oxygen for energy. Just ability to properly breathe during certain efforts, so really being able to focus on proper breathing during exercise. Proper blood flow, so that's going to aid in recovery, which is the next bullet point here. And that's one of the primary reasons why this would be incorporated during a period of time where we're kind of reaching a training plateau, is to ensure that we're recovering properly. And the way that this manifests itself within the gym, within what we do and what we program, is the active recovery workouts that we program on a weekly basis, where you're going to spend a period of time on either the rower or the bike. So it's very focused work. It allows you to really primarily focus exclusively on intaking oxygen and breathing properly and pacing properly, not beating up your joints too much, and just stay in that aerobic system for an extended period of time. And it's a great way to incorporate that and make sure that we're developing that system, without incorporating these other systems, or finding ourselves in a situation where we're beating our bodies up, we're working a little bit too hard on a given day, and we're not allowing ourselves to recover properly. And again, that conversation can extend out for hours, but those are some of the reasons why we program those things, give you guys an opportunity to kind of chill from burning yourself down every single time you come on in here, still get some good work in, learn how to breathe, learn how to use oxygen, and allow your body and muscles to recover. Really important stuff. If you haven't been doing that, I would strongly encourage. I know when we first started programming those things, a bunch of people kind of jumped on it. We saw people on the rowers quite a bit. It's sort of cooled off a little bit in the past few weeks, I've noticed. So I certainly encourage all of you guys, if you haven't taken advantage of that, please do. If you have questions about how to do it or why you're doing it or how it kind of works, please seek me out and I can help you. It's really good stuff. And then the sixth point here is a little bit less of a tangible concept of just trying to relax and enjoy the process. One of my friends, Adrian Bosman, I heard him once say at a seminar that exercise is the most important thing in the world, but it's only exercise. So we have to make sure that we continue to put things in perspective and recognize that we can't attach ourselves to results all the time. We simply have to attach ourselves to the effort we can put in and the control, or the things that we have control over. You could certainly dig into this idea from a psychological perspective, and there's tons of ideas surrounding how to have the right mentality when trying to master any skill. One of the best books I ever read on that subject was Mastery by George Leonard, and it speaks specifically to this idea of trying to master any skill, and exercise is no different, that we're going to encounter these plateaus. We have to respect and appreciate that process and ride that plateau and enjoy the process of riding that plateau, and recognize that we have to just develop patience, and we have to develop humility and respect that process, and understand that if we continue to come in and focus on the effort, that eventually we're going to ride that plateau out and continue to see progress and development in all the different areas that we want to see. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to add with respect to that. Certainly there's tons of books and articles and different ideas surrounding that, how you get your the right mind state for this kind of stuff, and continue to explore as many of those things as possible. All right, gang, so that finishes up our discussion on training plateaus. Again, go back to the first video in this series if you have certain questions with respect to these other ideas or exactly what this process entails. We hopefully will be continuing our At the Whiteboard series throughout the course of the year on a more regular basis. To the end of 2015 we had a little hiccup there, but I look forward to more videos. Certainly if you guys have more topics or questions for me, submit them to dennis@crossfitgardencity.com, and we'll have a look and see what we can discuss next. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Thank you guys.